Hi, it's Wendy from Worldwide Speak. This video is the last video in the Writing an Essay in English series. It's on the conclusion paragraph. In this video, I'm going to help you write a clear and effective conclusion paragraph. Keep watching. Okay, so you know I like to use shapes so that you can visualize the pieces of an essay. And for the conclusion paragraph, I'd like you to think of it as a triangle that looks like this one in the slide here. It's a right side up triangle as opposed to the triangle that was flipped for the introduction paragraph. This triangle starts out small, or in writing terms, specific, and then it gets bigger or more general. The first sentence of your conclusion paragraph is the restated thesis. Now, what does restated mean? Well, when we're writing, when we restate something, it means that we're going to say the same thing again, but we're going to use different words. So that's the first sentence of the conclusion paragraph. Let's look at the thesis that we wrote for the introduction paragraph in part 2. Here was our thesis. Read it with me. Yet, the most amazing city that one must visit when traveling in the United States is Chicago because of its architecture, restaurants, and museums. For the conclusion, we want to say the same exact thing, but we want to change the order of the sentence and the words of the sentence so that it doesn't sound exactly the same as the thesis, but it still has the same meaning. Well, how do we do this? Here's one way we can do it. Chicago is the best city to experience while on vacation. I mentioned Chicago because that's the point of my essay, is I want people to visit Chicago. And I didn't go into detail about what exactly makes Chicago the best city to visit, but I can do that a little bit later in the conclusion. The main purpose of the restated thesis is just to remind your reader of your focus or your thesis and to say it a little bit differently. Next, you might want to add in some more of that detail about why the thesis is so important. So when we take a look at the restated thesis, Chicago is the best city to experience while on vacation. Remember, we didn't mention anything about the architecture or the restaurants or the museums. That would be a good thing to do right now. You could say something like, the beautiful buildings, restaurants, and museums make this place a must-see. You've given a little more information about your specific topic, which is visiting Chicago on vacation, and you've created another sentence, but you've said it in a little bit different way, which makes it more interesting for the reader. Last, you might want to give the reader something to think about. You really want your essay to stay with them for a bit. You want your reader to think about what you wrote about. That's why you're writing. You're writing to talk to somebody. And although your writing will have a different purpose depending on the type of essay you're writing, but we write to communicate. And you want what you said to stay with the reader for a while and make them think about it. A lot of times, what we tell our students is to add a suggestion or an opinion or a prediction. This really helps people think about things, and it causes them to stop for a moment and consider what you had written about. For example, we can suggest that they start planning a trip to Chicago as soon as possible. We could write a sentence like this. So, start planning and packing today for a visit to this exciting American metropolis. They might never plan a trip to Chicago or even go to Chicago, but I bet the person reading your essay is going to start thinking about Chicago and be open to the possibility of visiting there one day. They're going to think, oh, Chicago sounds awesome. I want to go there. So it's really important that we look at these sentences not only in the shape of the triangle, but how it would look in paragraph form like you would write it for school. Why don't you read this with me? Chicago is the best city to experience while on vacation. The beautiful buildings, restaurants, and museums make this place a must-see. So, start planning and packing today for a visit to this exciting American metropolis. Okay, so let's review the parts of the conclusion paragraph. We have the restated thesis. That's where we say the same thing as the thesis, but in a different order and using different words so that it's not exactly the same as your thesis, but it has the same meaning. Then we give a little more information about the topic and revisit some of your details possibly from the body paragraph. And lastly, we want to leave the reader with a suggestion, an opinion, or a prediction. We want the reader to think about what we wrote. We want our idea to stay with them for a while. I know you can do this. You can write a clear, effective essay in English. You now have the overview of the whole essay in part 1. You have clear instructions on how to write the introduction in part 2. You have everything you need to know about the body paragraph. And lastly, you have this video on the conclusion paragraph. You have all of the pieces and you have the information in order to begin writing in English an essay that is clear and effective and thoughtful. I know you can do this. And if you would like to see what this essay looks like in complete form with the 3 paragraphs that we talked about in this series, the intro, the body paragraph, and the conclusion, you can find it on our website at worldwidespeak.com/coaching. Best of luck to you in your writing in English. You can do it.